Well, dear brothers, um, and sisters, I have looked at what the Bible says, and have you ever seen one of those videos where the person just takes his open palm and just reaches back as far as he can, and there's a guy right from in front of him or a lady, and they just slap the living daylights out of the face? A slapping contest I'm talking about? Well, think about that as I talk about my next topic. You have a person that's just rearing back and smack right across the face. The purpose is to see if they can knock out the other person. But the other person that's getting slapped just stands there and braces himself to keep himself from being knocked out. Craziest thing. Really silly, but really, really interesting. It's a competition. Again, really silly. But he just stands there and lets himself be smacked by the other guy who is doing as hard as he can with an open palm. And it's basically a slapping contest, but he just stands there and lets it happen. It's the craziest thing. If I knew how to cut and paste other videos so I could show you the clip that I was looking at, it is the darndest thing. So, anyway, and that brings me back to my main point, and that is the fact of in the Bible, one of the most misquoted passages in the Bible is the quote of an eye for an eye. I've been wanting to cover this for a really, really long time because I've had so many people tell me, well, we got to deal with an eye for an eye by hitting the eye. And the reality is, in the Old Testament, there were places where they actually said that. And the reason being for it was that they would be dealing with somebody in another country. And it was their way of punishment. But when Christ came back, he changed all that. He changed it so that way when you get smitten on the face, you get smitten on the other eye. So Jesus Christ himself was asked about that. And then he turned around and said, for in Matthew 5:38-39, you have heard that it was said, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. But I say to you, do not resist the one who is evil, but if anyone slaps you on the right cheek, turn to him the other also. In other words, I don't want you to pay back an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth, but turn your cheek so they can slap the other one also. So that, to me, that says a whole lot. Jesus is saying that you're going to be, you can be attacked. Do not retaliate. For if you get hit, let him hit you. If you get hit on the other cheek, let him hit you. Now, I don't mean necessarily figuratively or literally, but it's figurative in the fact that if you're being hit, or I just said it was literally, but if somebody is going after you, you're not to retaliate. I'm guilty of that, and so is about everybody else in this world. But we're not to retaliate. For it says later in the Bible, in Matthew, Jesus himself also says, for it is I that is going to get revenge, because the revenge is the Lord's, saith the Lord. So in other words, it's not going to be up to us to try to get vengeance. Vengeance is the Lord's. So some people have short tempers. Some people have medium tempers. Some people have long tempers. It just depends. I can be one of the ones with one of the shorter tempers. But it's really hard to have to keep myself in check. I even have a good hair day going. But anyway, rabbit. But the point I'm trying to make is that, to bring it all home, is the fact I go back and think about those slapping contests. Now, it is a contest where they go back and forth. One guy slaps, then the other guy slaps, then the one guy slaps, then the other guy slaps, until somebody is woozy and can't stand anymore. But Jesus says to not return violence for violence. Jesus says it is not an eye for an eye. And I really found that what I find interesting about this is people are so quick to say an eye for an eye. You know, I got to retaliate because it's an eye for an eye. And I have to do this because, you know, the Bible says an eye for an eye. And I said no. And we as Christians need to educate other Christians that you need to read the full passage. Because if you read just the first verse, it says, "For you have heard that it was said, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth." That is Matthew 5:38. If you just read that verse, then yes, you are reading the verse in context. That is why when you do devotions, that you look at a passage, and this is a good example where you're saying, yeah, it's an eye for an eye. Verse 39, "But I say to you, do not resist the one who was evil. But if anyone slaps you on the right cheek, turn to him the other also." In other words, don't retaliate. Don't retaliate. I heard it said, and it is really frustrating, but it's very true. But return evil with kindness. Always return evil with kindness. I'm bad about that sometimes, just like most everybody else. But if you do this, that is how God will get his vengeance, because people are not happy with being treated with respect, especially nowadays. People are not happy with being treated politely. They want to be mean and evil, but you treat them nicely, and it's amazing what happens. And not only that, but you can also turn around and make a friend, and maybe they might understand what God's all about. But you, my brothers, need to show God's love in being forgiving each other and loving each other, just as Christ would do for you. So if you get nothing else out of this, understand that when you're doing your devotions, and I don't know if I ever completed this statement, but when you do your devotions, don't just read a verse or two verses. Read a portion of it to where it makes full sense. Because I guarantee you, a lot of people are guilty of that. Again, I'm human, me included. I know, it's hard to believe I'm human, right? But I'm telling you, let's look at the Bible more in depth when we do our Bible studies. And let's look at what it says, not just on the surface, but underneath. And I guarantee you, there's always something new to learn. So anyway, please like, share, and subscribe my videos. Leave any comments you might have on this passage. And remember, it's not an eye for an eye. It is all about love. You folks be blessed and have a great day. And I'll see you on the next one.